Hi everyone, my name is Steve Flanders, and I'm a Solutions Architect on the vCenter Login Site product team at VMware. And I'd like to show you how to perform the initial configuration of the Login Site virtual appliance, specifically for version 2.0 GA. In my last video presentation, I showed you how to deploy the Login Site virtual appliance. And I mentioned that when the operation was complete and the VM had been powered on and configured, you would see on the splash screen the URL that you'd need to enter into your web browser in order to perform all the initial configuration. So you'll see that I have that up for you here, and in this case I have an IP address available to me. So I'll go ahead and I'll open this URL in the browser of my choice. The latest versions of all major browsers are supported, so Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, Safari. And you'll notice that when I get to that URL link, I am presented with a certificate warning. In this case, it's because the Login Site Virtual Appliance ships with a self-signed certificate that is not trusted by your browser. You do have the ability of uploading your own SSL certificate later on if you do want to get rid of this warning, or you can go ahead and accept the certificate so that the warning does not appear on your current browser. Now, when you first do this for the first time, you'll go through a one-time configuration wizard that will set all the important configuration options on your virtual appliance. So we'll go ahead and hit Next. Now, one thing new that you'll notice in Login Site 2.0 GA is that there is now a deployment type option that you have to specify at the beginning of the initial configuration. And this basically says, do I want to deploy a new standalone instance of Login Site? Or am I deploying a new Login Site instance that I wish to join an existing Login Site deployment and, in effect, create or expand a cluster? So in this video presentation, I'll actually show you how to do a standalone. So I'll select Start New Deployment. And this will take a few seconds as it configures a few things on the back end. But once it's done, it will come back and it will give us a series of steps that we need to configure in the virtual appliance for some of the most important aspects of the virtual appliance. First thing up is the administration credentials. By default, there is an admin user for the HTML5 interface and the password is empty. So you are required to go ahead and set that here. So I'll go ahead and enter a password in, and then select Next. Next up, I have to go ahead and enter a license key. So I'll go ahead and type that in and select the Add License Key option. It will then tell me if the key is valid or not, and I will be able to continue. Okay, so next up is the general configuration, and there's two important aspects here. The first is the Email System Notifications to dialog box. So anything that happens on the virtual appliance that is critical that you would need to react to or need to know about is sent through system notifications. This is actually separate from the administration account. You'd notice in the admin page there was an email field there. That email field is not used for system notifications. So you'll want to be sure that all the users or groups or mailing lists that you care about are specified in this dialog box. And the second part of this is the Customer Experience Improvement Program, which is basically a call home functionality for Login Site, which gives VMware anomalized trace data of how you're using the Login Site virtual appliance. This is extremely helpful to discover any potential issues that may be happening, to see how you're using the product, to see the type of queries that are being run. It really helps the VMware Login Site team optimize the product. So if you are comfortable with it, we would highly recommend that you go ahead and enable this. You can actually log into the virtual appliance and see the data that's being collected, see the anonymized data, and basically what happens is on a weekly basis, this anonymized data is sent to VMware via email through an encrypted email that only VMware can decipher. Next up is time configuration. Time is extremely important on the Login Site virtual appliance, so please make sure this is configured properly. The recommendation is to use an NTP server. You can either use public ones. We have VMware specific ones by default listed here. You can also specify other external NTP servers or even internal NTP servers in your environment. If by chance you do not have an NTP server, you do have the option of using the ESX or ESXi host that the virtual appliance is running on. Now, time configuration is important because it is used as events are coming in. The events are actually tagged with the local time of the virtual appliance. It's used for Active Directory authentication. It's used for clustering. It's used for a variety of things. So it's highly recommended that you go ahead and validate that this is working properly. And there is a test option available to you. SMTP configuration. If you want the email system notifications to work, if you want the user to find alerts, which will be demonstrated in a future video, and if you want the call home to work, you need to ensure the SMTP is configured properly. Now, the virtual appliance does have an SMTP server on it. You'll just want to validate that that SMTP server has the access it needs to send messages out. So it's highly recommended that you go ahead and send a test email notification just to make sure you're receiving them properly. And you do have the ability of modifying the SMTP configuration to point to an external or internal SMTP server within your environment. And that's it. You'll notice that some of the other steps that were available in 1.x are no longer in the initial configuration because they are not critical. They are not the things that are necessary to really get the virtual machine up and ready to go. Now, once I start ingesting log messages into this environment, I will have the ability of seeing my dashboards and interactive analytics pages. You do notice here that it does recommend that you configure things such as vSphere integration, and you can go to the administration section to configure all of the other options. Things like SSL certificate, I had mentioned this earlier, can be configured here. The archiving option that used to be in the initial configuration wizard is now available in the admin page for you. And then, of course, your integrations with vSphere and vCenter Operations Manager. Now, I'll walk through the options in the admin section in a future video. So that concludes how to do a new initial deployment configuration of Log Insight. I'll cover the clustering aspects as well in a future video presentation. So I'd encourage you to go ahead and take a look at my blog, sflanders.net. I have a lot of good information on Log Insight and a lot more coming. Also be sure to take a look at my Twitter. My handle is smflanders. I will be posting pro tips for Log Insight 2.0 GA. Thank you so much for watching.